Hello, welcome to Ycft. Samcam has returned. Anyone who's been with us the past few weeks noticed that we went down to one camera. I am also no longer full of cold.
No, we're back in business.
We are back in business. Still got a little bit of a sniffle that just will not dissipate, but that's probably because the British summer is on its way and everyone gets ill in the summer as well as when we get ill in the winter, we get ill in the autumn, we get ill in the spring.
It's Britain.
We're just ill. So, I'm very excited to talk about this week's video.
You love this movie.
I love this one. I introduced this to you during lockdown, I believe. I think I just said, watch this movie. It's great. It's great. And
no context.
No context. Please watch. Kind of like Pandorum, except I didn't sit with you. We watched it separately.
Yeah, we were living together at the time.
No, we are talking about Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. There's a good chance that nobody's heard of this film.
It's one of those movies where, like, a select few do, and those who do love it. But otherwise, no one has heard of it. I have never met anyone that's like, oh yeah, that was an okay film, I guess. People either love it, or they just don't know it exists.
Yes. So it's directed by Scott Glosserman.
They
came out in 2006, and this movie bombed. We're talking like just over 69k.
Just over 69.
And I think it just had a limited release, and it's basically a kind of a found footage film deconstructing the slasher genre. It has been described by other channels as the closest competitor or potential competitor to what Scream does.
I think so. Like, the only worthy competitor, potentially, in what it does to the genre, for the genre.
Who plays Taylor?
Taylor is played by Angela Goethals.
And
I want to say
she is following up-and-coming slasher Leslie Vernon, played by Nathan Basil? I believe it's Basil.
Yeah.
He is gearing up to his first kill, his first big evening to cement his legend. And her and her documentary crew are following him around, learning the process, learning the tricks of the trade.
How to be a slasher.
And I say kind of found footage, because a lot of it is told through the camera.
Yeah.
But then when he goes into certain details, we see it cuts away to cinematic as if we're watching the movie.
Yeah.
That's why I don't feel comfortable calling this a found footage film, because it isn't. It's an interesting choice. And I do think that's the one criticism I tend to see about this is a lot of people don't like when it cuts away from the camera's POV to the cinema POV, which
I liked it.
I actually kind of liked it. I think it helps this film stand out.
Yeah.
So in this world, all the iconic slashers, Michael, Jason, Freddy, Chucky, are real.
The stories are well known. At Crystal Lake, a madman named Jason Voorhees has killed dozens over the past 3 decades. A murderer's repeated attacks have left a psychological scar so deep, some insist that simply dreaming about him can kill you in your sleep. And in Haddonfield, a prodigal son named Michael Myers has struck in a similar fashion on or near Halloween on at least 4 different occasions.
But they're just people.
Yes.
Using special tricks of the trade to make them seem otherworldly. Yeah. Essentially, it's like a job. The way it's described by a character called Eugene, who is essentially Leslie's like mentor, and a lot of people have tried to work out who he could be if he is an iconic slasher. I personally think he might be Leatherface.
I think you might be right. There's clues to hint towards that.
Yeah. His partner's called Jamie, who was his final kill.
Jamie,
this film is littered with.
Every single moment
is littered with references.
It's hard to write them down because there was just too many.
But when Eugene is asked by Taylor, why do people do this? Like, you are killing people. He says, basically, in order for everything that is good to exist, there needs to be evil.
There needs to be a counterbalance.
There needs to be a counterbalance, and it's an exploration of people's fear and breaking through their fears to become something else.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these slashers, they go into this knowing that there is a chance they might not survive this.
They might not.
It's really interesting. So say if Scream is obviously an exploration of horror movies and horror movie tropes, this film's an exploration of how would you survive these scenarios if they were real? And I find that really interesting. And the tropes are just tricks of the trade. They're things that need to be in there because it's expected. There's legends that have set these things in place.
Exactly. Like, so to name but a few, obviously Leslie, when he's talking to Taylor, like the first few days they're getting to know each other, he regales her with his backstory and how he himself, Leslie Vernon, within the town, which is called Glen Echo. I don't know if that's a real place, but it's set in Maryland, which I think in and of itself is a nod to the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, well, even the documentary style is a nod to the Blair Witch itself, because it was only 7 years after that?
Wouldn't have been long after, less than 10 years. But yeah, he talks about, how he is an urban legend, and he tells her this really tragic backstory about how, as a baby, he was thrown over the Glen Echo waterfalls, and everyone presumes he's dead, and all of that. Turns out it's bollocks. Yeah, he's actually just like a mentally unstable man. So the whole urban legend, the killer with the backstory, the tragic backstory, that's a big part of this movie. It's a big part of Leslie's whole thing. And when she confronts him with it, he's like, yeah, like a serial killer needs a backstory. We need the urban legend.
You used me. How can you even think this is about you, though? This is my life. Taylor, this is my life.
We go through the whole process of him taking Taylor and the crew to target his... They call it, in this one, a survivor girl, obviously a final girl. How important it is to, single them out, and why you need to single them out. But it's also not enough that they're a virgin. They need, their supporting cast as well. And, you've got to take, their friends into consideration as well. He has to do a strict cardio regime to keep in shape.
That is actually one of my favourite parts of the whole movie. When he's working out, he's like, cardio's so important.
He's like, oh, I gotta run after these guys.
You gotta get around, make it look easy. And I've got to somehow look like I'm walking and keep up with them when everyone else is running their asses off.
It's tough.
I adore that scene.
You gotta be able to run like a freaking gazelle without getting winded. And plus, there's that whole thing of making it look like you're walking, and everybody else is running their asses off.
Oh, right.
And I gotta stay with them.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
He reads books on Houdini and, all these classic escape artists because, the classic trope of the serial killer is after you 1 minute and you turn around and he's gone. Or, they get out of him seemingly impossible traps. So it's so meticulously planned. His future soon-to-be killing spree is orchestrated down to the last detail, and he's just regaling Taylor and the crew with everything, how he plans to do everything, and it kind of just it demystifies basically a lot of what we see with Michael Myers, what we see with Jason, what we see with Freddy. This movie just basically tells you all the practicalities of what a slasher must go through.
That's my cue to split them up. He'll tell her to stay put while he checks it out. He'll say, everything's all right.
Honey?
And then...
You let her go?
She's the starting gun. She'll run screaming back into the house and start the panic.
The film kind of opens and we go back to it. The survivor girl, she's working in a diner. She goes out to take the rubbish out. The door closes behind her. She thinks she sees something. And that's entirely set up by Leslie. He puts wire on the bricks. He's like, oh, she does this every single night. You're going to pull this away. I'm going to appear. And it's like, she's not going to see me. She's going to think she is. And it's just going to start to lay the seeds. It's like, God. So all these, slash films where it's almost like, oh, these characters are just in the wrong place at the wrong time when this killer turns up. In this world, oh, no, this has been planned for, at least a year.
He's been stalking her for a long while.
Yeah.
He's familiar with her patterns.
Yeah. Also, just thinking, obviously, his backstory that he's taken the town's urban legend, taking on the story of this dead child, is kind of you could apply this to Jason.
Absolutely.
How in part 2, obviously, Jason arrives as a fully grown man. When we've seen him die, we know he died as a child.
Yeah.
In this world, someone would have just taken the legend of Jason and ran with it. And in theory, when you get to part 5, when it's not actually Jason, spoilers for if anyone's not watched that could just be someone else impersonating the person who is Jason.
Yeah. Also,
it works so well.
It really does.
Kind of does a lot of what Cabin in the Woods would later do with deconstructing why do these things happen. That, obviously, it's a big ritual thing. There's a bigger looming threat of why this needs to happen and why it needs to happen in a certain way.
Yeah.
This is breaking it down in a much simpler way.
Definitely. I was just going to say that in terms of Leslie's get-up, when he actually, dons his serial killer slasher costume, it's more than anyone, it's very Jason reminiscent as
Very
well.
Jason-esque.
Part 2 Jason specifically, farm boy Jason with the overalls and the mask. And
Also, his real name, Leslie Mancuso.
yeah, Vernon isn't even his last name.
Yeah, Mancuso comes from Frank Mancuso Jr., who was the producer of the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, there's nods galore throughout. Like, it's easy to miss them if you not too familiar, I guess, with.
Well, it's like, I think you'd miss Kane Hodder if you didn't know who he was.
Oh yeah,
because they visit Elm Street, and Kane Hodder is on Elm Street. Jason is in Freddy's turf there.
Yeah, well, she asks him, doesn't she? Like, she does that classic journalist thing of, "Sir, can you tell me what more about your neighbour, Frederick?" And she's going to say Krueger,
Yeah.
but he slams the door. He's not interested.
Yeah. The biggest reference is Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund, is in this playing his Ahab, they call it. Which is like the nemesis, the Dr. Loomis character.
Leslie!
No more. It ends here.
He's then excited, oh my god, I've got an Ahab.
He's ecstatic.
He's excited. It
Ecstatically
elevates his plan.
Yeah.
And
We got an Ahab!
Wow, we got an Ahab! What's an Ahab?
It's a guy. It's a guy like the guy back there. Get in. We got to tell Eugene.
that's one thing I think really sells this film and makes it work for me, is Leslie is so likable.
He is.
It's like, he's so friendly, he's so enthusiastic.
Charming.
And you can see how the crew gets sucked into it. And then they have brief moments where they kind of step back, and it's like, oh, and the big one is when when Robert Englund's character, Dr. Halliday, I think he's called,
Holiday.
tells her that Leslie Vernon isn't his real name. Leslie's furious because they went to try and talk to the survivor girl.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you do not talk to her. You could ruin this. This is my life's work. And you see him turn. He has his hand on his throat, and it's only that they kind of realize, like, it's like that brought back to, oh my god, yes, this man wants to be a killer.
Yeah, there's sobering moments of, we are actually dealing with a madman here. It's like, I really appreciated those scenes on rewatch, actually. Like, when he does turn, and when he gets threatening with Taylor and the camera crew, and he's like, don't fucking ruin this for me. Like, this is my life's work. Everything I've done has been leading to this moment. Do not ruin this. And, like, he's really good at, like, how he does just switch it on and switch it off.
He didn't really stay in acting, did he, Nathan? He went on to become, like, a post-production coordinator on shows like Deadliest Catch.
Yeah.
So he's had a career, and a decent career, just not in acting.
No, not in acting. He did a few other bit parts, but...
Yeah, he did appear in Dead Meat's Kill Count of
He
this
did,
film.
yeah. Well, he's still very much attached to the movie, because I saw on his Instagram he does conventions a lot and stuff, so...
I'd love to be him. It's what pulls me back to this film as often as it does. It is him and Taylor have such good chemistry. And so you can see when you compare him to, like, Eugene and his wife Jamie, you can almost see how that could happen for Leslie and Taylor.
Yeah.
Because she does seem, especially later in the film, to start caring about him and almost start to, like, forget what it is that he's about to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he has such a warm and bubbly personality, which is such a contradiction to what he is aspiring to be and wanting to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Zelda Rubinstein is in this film, in
She
her
is.
last film role.
Yeah.
And that is the first kill we have in this film.
Yeah, the library.
And that's another one setting up the survivor girl, like, laying the backstory in there for her to pick up. And they're watching through the window, like, they're like, oh my god, like, he's like a gazelle. He's like, getting things in place. And I remember you really liked the point, because he said, right, so I'm going to do this, and if it goes right, which it very rarely does.
Yeah, I really like that.
So it's like he has backup plans, because things just don't always go to plan.
If everything goes right, and it never does, but if it does, she's gonna read the newspaper clipping and want to read the rest of the article.
He has contingency after contingency, because, it never really goes right for the serial killer and slashers.
But this moment, so we've had the moment where she thinks she sees it. This one, she is going to see him, and he's going to kill someone, and he kills the librarian, and her job is to give him some backstory to her, and he kind of creates a fake link between her and Leslie's backstory.
Yeah.
I think that was a really fun role for her. I think she's really good. The brief moment that she is in the film.
It's also one of the first few scenes that breaks the documentary style filmmaking. That whole sequence is done just like a standard film shot, like horror film shot. It's really well done, and I absolutely love it. I really do. There is a big twist.
There is. Before we get into the big twist, we are going to spoil this. This film, like I said, it came out 2000. It's 18 years. We could go for a beer with this film now. Yeah. And I love when we go to the house where it's all going to go down, kids' party. I even like the logistics where when she still thinks he's Leslie Vernon. So do you own this house? Like, well, yeah, it's in a trust, but the county kind of looks after it. It's like, well, why do you live here? It's like, He's like, oh yeah, well, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm really just going to go live it. What are they going to see me mowing the lawn? That's just going to completely take it away.
You know what I love about that moment? It's the delivery of it, because again, like, he's so affable and he's so charming, and he's like, well, yeah, I'm a tech guy, Taylor. Like, I can't possibly move into this house. And he looks at the camera crew as if to say, like, can you believe what she just suggested? Like, oh, Taylor, you're so silly.
I also kind of like how they kind of include outtakes. Like, sometimes the crew will ask questions when they get excited or like, oh my god, and then say, oh, actually, Taylor, probably better. You should ask him this.
Good call.
Yeah, so it's like we're kind of seeing like the unedited footage as it's going through. So
it's great.
You do want Kelly to go in there?
Yes.
You're kidding. What for?
Wait, Taylor. We should get you asking that.
Good call.
I do look, so again, before we get to the twist, something I did ask you, which, like, you know, I don't think it's really answered or explained, but, like, I totally get that this whole film exists based on the premise that serial killers exist. Michael Myers existed. Jason Voorhees existed. Like, all these slashers. When they're making the documentary, Taylor, Doug, and Todd, I think he's called, the other one, like, the most, like, Doug and Todd. The most American names.
It's almost it almost reminds me of, you know, Guy 1 and Guy 2 from the Summer Party Massacre remake.
Pick the most generic name. There you go. It's like, okay, so they're filming this up-and-coming serial killer who is laying out all his future sadistic plans. He is telling this camera crew how he's going to murder these people. He does murder people throughout the course of the documentary. How does Taylor think, like, she's not going to get prosecuted once this documentary airs?
Exactly, yeah.
She is aiding and abetting a slasher.
I guess that's, in this world, they must be such commonplace. And I saw Civil War recently, and that is kind of a similar thing when you have war journalists who their whole thing is not to interfere. And I guess that's the kind of the approach that they're taking.
Yeah.
It's like, this is going to happen with or without them. They're just documenting it. And in theory, when they put it out, it's essentially as a guide to how to prevent this in the future. But yeah, there's no way that she wouldn't face some type of prosecution.
Yeah, because they are just standing by, watching people get murdered without intervening at all.
I think throughout the film, because Leslie kind of brings them in, like, because he's so, like, warm and welcoming, they kind of almost forget,
in a way,
what's about to happen.
In a way.
I love it when he's taking them through, like, what is going to be the showdown, the house. He takes them through the whole plan. Everything he points out comes back into it later, but slightly twisted.
Slightly different.
And get to see few more of the classic tropes. He's like, oh, I need to be in the house as little as possible because that restricts me. I need to, like, no one can get away. I need to restrict their exit, so I've nailed all these windows shut. If they are going to go out through the window, it's probably going to be on the top floor, on the roof, and then they're screwed. She's like, oh, won't they just break the window? He's like, you'd think so, but they never do.
Don't they just smash them out?
You'd think so. But you'd be surprised. No. And when they do smash it out, it's on the second floor or higher. And then they're out on the roof and they're screwed.
Yeah, no one thinks to smash through a window.
Yeah, it's like how many times the characters went through the second story window in Friday the 13th.
Exactly. Window kills.
I love window kills. The weapons, like, he's like, oh, he's going to go to the shed, he's going to see a body. Probably pick one of these weapons. Like, this axe, it's, you know, pre-cut, so it's probably got one good swing in it. This has been losing. I've sabotaged all the weapons. Just got to hope that they don't knock me out in the first hit.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's thought of everything, but it leans in so much to what we see in these classic slashers.
Oh, totally. And even, you know, the discussion, about, you know, like, oh, she's going to grab a long, hard weapon.
Phallic imagery in it. When the film gets kind of deeper than you expect, it's like she has to... the final girl usually in some way will demasculate the killer by taking a big weapon, taking his power away and using it against him.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate, because she'll be taking my manhood and empowering herself with it.
Because he's right. He does actually say to Taylor, he's like, oh, come on, like, how many times have you heard of a final girl aiming for, like, an itty-bitty gun to finish off the killer? It's like, it's always an axe, it's always a knife, it's always a pipe. Like, it's something that is connected to the killer, but inherently quite phallic.
There's also a lot
I love that.
I can't remember the term he used when he's talking about essentially the opposite
Yannick
of a phallic. Yannick. When he describes, like, the closet, it's like, that's a safe place. It's kind of like the womb, and he spent ages working on like the landscaping outside the house, like a nice like way through the trees that'll lead to the barn where the showdown goes down. It's like this is like the birthing canal.
Yonic imagery is extremely important in our work.
Yonic.
Yonic, opposite of phallic, it's girl parts.
Yeah.
When she goes in as this terrified, innocent woman and comes out as the survivor girl.
Yeah, but again, like, it's all, that whole thing, like, it's all set dress. It's basically like his stage.
Yeah.
Like, he's the production designer of, like, yes, he's messed up the weapons. He's deliberately grown the trees so they look, eerie and like the swamp-like area that he knows the final girl is going to run into. It's been so cleverly orchestrated. But yeah, it is essentially a stage, and he is like the hidden director.
Yeah.
It's so clever.
I like how when he's talking to Eugene's talking to them about how like Michael and changed the game with essentially with theatrics and setting it up so that they can come back and say, but then you always have your one-offs, your glory seekers.
We
And
interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We'd like to shout out our groovy members. We appreciate everything you do for this channel and helping us grow. You guys are awesome.
they even dropped the name sorority, so like Sorority House Massacre, Slumber Party, Prom Night, the one in, like almost like the one. I know at some point it wasn't a one done, but the one and dones.
The one and done.
That are just trying to like capitalize on the big guys. And it's like, well, yeah, that's most of what the 80s was films trying to live up to Halloween. Friday the 13th was trying to live up to Halloween.
They make a point of like Michael Myers especially making slashes into an art form.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
Especially, which is very interesting.
Because Eugene seems to be from like the 60s and 70s, and age-wise, it's not concrete who he's supposed to be if he is a famous slasher. For me, I thought maybe he could be Billy from Black Christmas.
I don't think he is. I don't get that
he was also a one and done. And really, because when we first see him, he's in like a sensory deprivation thing. He comes out and he's wearing a suit. That makes me think that he is Leatherface.
Leatherface. Also, the guy that plays him, what's he called?
Scott Wilson.
Scott Wilson, yeah. Very famous, prolific.
He's really
actor.
good. I love it when he's like, he's chopping the carrots, but he's like doing it too much and he's stabbing. It's like, you know, the old...
Taylor shits us all. Yeah. Well, he has a southern accent as well. And then...
He's barbecuing.
He is barbecuing. There's meat on the barbecue. So I think, like, it's... Obviously, it's not spelled out, but I think the inference is there that he could very well be connected to the Sawyer family in some way. I definitely get more Texas Chainsaw vibes from him than Black Christmas vibes.
Ultimately, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't
to the
matter.
story.
No, it's nice to speculate.
It's nice to speculate. It's nice to think about. So yeah, the twist.
The twist.
Well, our Taylor finally has a change in art because they're in the top floor. The party's going on,
and all the cast are in place.
Because Leslie gets very emotional. You see him putting on his makeup and everything. And he starts to cry because he's so
happy.
Yeah. And then he goes off and he's like, right, the party's, they're up in the bed now, and let them get going. And he goes in, just kills them. We just hear it, and that's when it kind of hits over them, like, oh my god.
It's begun. Taylor. What's wrong?
Get that thing out of my face. Just get it out of my face.
What am I supposed to...
I don't give a fuck!
Hey, Jesus.
I love the scene directly after that where he escorts the camera crew and Taylor out, and she's like, why? What are you doing? And he's like, you've got that look. She's like, what look? That look that says we can't just stand idly by and watch this happen. Like he predicted
that this would
could be
happen.
a turn, that she was going to suddenly grow a conscience. Conscience.
And he's right.
What look?
The we can't just stand here and let this happen look.
They do. Yeah, well, she does especially.
Now we break, so the back of this is when we break the documentary format. We're just in
horror movie
film mode now.
Yeah.
So she goes in, she tries to warn them, and she finds the virgin, the survivor girl, reverse cowgirling on a nerdy character, which is, to be honest, way more like 2000s onwards horror, like going away from the traditional tropes of your final girl being a virgin, cabin in the woods, when it's like, oh, we take what we can get.
Take what we can get.
And that's when we realise Taylor was the survivor girl all along. She's the virgin.
Yeah.
This whole thing was a setup to get her there. He has got her to document
her own
demise.
Yeah.
And I will forever love that twist. I think it's one of the best twists. I think anyone watches this can predict that she was going to turn on him, then try and save them.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone... It was hard to predict that she was going to actually be the final girl.
Yeah, it is a cool twist, and it's also like the revelation comes from her. Like she's the one that pieces it together, and she just completely like crumbles
when she realizes how stupid she's been.
But I equally really like in the same moment, she can't help but admire the genius of the plan. Like she even says like, "Fuck, that's clever."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the camera guys are the same. It's like this is the first time in the film we've been able to see the camera guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is good, it's genius.
Yeah, because Kelly, like the fake final girl, the one that we think, this is that he's obsessed with, and the one that, he's really wanted, is actually just really fucking dumb. Like, she's absolutely useless. Aside from obviously not being a virgin, like, she completely panics. She draws attention to them. She
goes
dies.
out through the window.
She goes out through the window and she dies. Like, she's one of the first of the group to die. So Kelly was just fucking useless. Yeah. But yeah, Taylor was our survivor girl all along.
They think they know the plan, but he's obviously tweaked it with them. He's told them a version of the plan. It does basically play out the same, just a couple of bodies in different places.
Yeah.
I'll not spoil too much of this end, because I think it is just fun to watch, but it has to naturally end in a showdown between the two.
Yeah.
And I like how she takes her coat off and she's basically in the a vest, top, and jeans. I'm like, oh, Texas Chainsaw remake.
Yeah.
That's basically the outfit that
that
she was wearing in that one. I don't know if you can tell, I really enjoy this film.
I know you love this movie.
Yeah. And I like it when it breaks the documentary format.
I do as well.
It makes the showdown, even when he's killing the camera crew. One of them, I think it's Todd, takes his mask off. He tries to talk to him.
Doug, I think.
Yeah, he tries to reason with him because he kind of sees him as a friend.
Yeah.
He half takes his mask off. Leslie fully takes his mask off, and without words, just
Yeah, I do think there's a moment of not regret and not necessarily affection, but something in between those two. Because Doug is like, Les, come on, it's me, Les, come on. And he does hesitate a little bit, but then he does decide to do it. But I don't know, I think in his face, Leslie looks a bit pained at the fact that he did it. But then instantly, just carries on.
Yeah, then just carries on killing him.
Yeah.
No, ultimately, I think it's an apple crusher that is used
Yeah.
on him. And then she burns down the barn. They have a good fight. She even does pick up, in the moment, forgets about the broken axe and picks it up. And you said, how does he survive this? Or how would he survive this? I think he sabotaged it.
Yeah.
Because that's fair. Everything's been set up so perfectly. He knows the showdown's going to go there. There's kerosene or petrol, whatever. Something to burn the fuel, something to burn the barn down. If that's there, he's put that there.
Yeah. Everything is set
If he intended he knows that there's a chance that he says that he could either die, get caught,
or go into hiding.
I think he would have sabotaged that.
I agree, because there is a moment, there's a whole scene involving the apple crusher prior to the big showdown, and he makes a point of saying this is gonna get used on the big night. So I think he
tells Joseph, what for? Crushing apples.
But again, going back to contingency after contingency after contingency, he's in hindsight, I was watching it and I was like, well, how's this gonna work? He's definitely made sure that he's gonna get out of this.
Well, then she burns the barn down, and the credits it's not even a mid-credit scene or post-credit scene.
It's just a credit scene
of the mortuary, and you see his burnt body, and he sits up. There's a couple times he does the Michael Myers sit-up, which that takes a lot of caution. That's hard to do.
It actually does, yeah.
Yeah. And it goes, when we go back earlier in the film, when he's putting his makeup on, he says, it's a mixture of things that fighters use, it's to stop themselves from bleeding if they get scraped or something like that. But also he mixes in a bunch of fire retardant.
Yes.
That makes sense later on in the film. He always intended that if he was going to be defeated, she'd have a way to burn down the barn and for him to survive, cementing his legacy as one of those slashers that can come back. So I actually think he always intended to be defeated. Yeah. Now he's a legend. He's got everything that he wants.
Yeah, he's got his final girl.
He's defeated his Ahab.
He has defeated his Ahab.
He's got a bunch of bodies around him.
Yeah.
He is a legend.
He did it.
And the genius thing is, it's all documented.
Yeah.
Man, I even know this film didn't do well.
It's so sad. And, this is the thing, considering how little fanfare it got at the time, I'm kind of surprised like as many people know about it as they do.
I don't know how I came across it, because I was 13 when this came out, and I've seen... There was lots of Facebook groups trying to get a sequel, and I was in one of those Facebook groups.
Yeah.
So I think the rise of the internet is essentially how people... Because I could have only have acquired this film through means on the internet.
Yeah.
Because it definitely didn't get a cinema release anywhere near me.
No.
So it probably would have been a couple of years later that I watched it and, fell in love with it. Several attempts for a sequel have been made. Some of those story arcs were made into a comic series, which I've not read and I really want to try and get a hold of. That would be, hinted. Sam once got me the first issue of another comic series I really wanted, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash.
Yeah.
Which I think was a bit of a nightmare for you.
It was, because, yes, there was an issue with the post.
The director says every year that passes, a sequel gets less and less likely. And I think in 2017 he said, like, the idea they had just kind of no longer works because horror has changed. I think one of the ideas they had going around was that there was going to be a copycat killer, and Taylor was going to have to reconnect with Leslie to help stop him. Going almost even more meta with it. The closest we got to a sequel was they did a table read. Like, they both came back. He always said he would come back to play Leslie again.
Yeah.
Because he loves the role. It's very special to him.
Yeah.
And that was right before the pandemic, and then it just died. And I think the writers basically said, it's done. It's not going to happen. And that is so sad.
It's very sad.
The only thing I can hope for is a remake, maybe.
I don't know, like a remake,
A remake of a film
a remake of kind of a perfect film.
Yeah.
Is it needed?
It's almost like, is a sequel even needed? It's like, no.
But do we want it?
But I want it.
We just want to see these characters again, I think.
Yeah.
In some way.
I said 18 years later now, it's like, they're getting older.
Yeah. I do like the plot that they
Yeah.
had for the sequel.
Yeah. I wonder, like, how it would have changed. Like I said, because even now, even since 2017, horror has changed a lot.
It has.
And I feel like slashers tried to do a comeback, like with the Halloween trilogy, which did very well, which did well.
Yeah.
And there are a few, and Scream. The classics are doing well again, but we need some new blood that is going to...
Yeah.
And the closer we've got to that would be Terrifier.
Yeah,
I guess.
I suppose so.
So
yeah.
slashers are trying to make a comeback, but so few people know about this film.
I know, and you know what else is a big shame is because the 2000s, like even to an extent going into like the 2010s in the early days, is not considered horror's finest hour.
It's the remake era.
It is the remake era, and yet right slap bang in the middle, you get this really cool, imaginative, unique movie that is Behind the Mask.
Yeah.
And it just completely flew under the radar. So many people since the very beginning have said that horror is a tried and tested genre, that there's nothing new anymore, that, it's just, eat, what's the word, like rinse, repeat? Like,
yeah.
It's, there's nothing new, there's nothing exciting. You've got a movie like this. This is as unique as it possibly can get. And no one knows about it. Aside from the very few that do.
Icon's basically The Office for slasher fans.
It kind of is The Office for slasher fans, yeah.
Ryan Hollinger did a video on this one a while ago, and he said, interestingly, the tropes revolving around horror are the ones that, journalists and critics tend to use to justify why they don't like the genre. It's like, every genre has tropes.
Yeah.
It's like crime films have tropes, comedies have tropes,
Yeah.
superhero films have tropes. So, horror having its own set of tropes isn't, doesn't set it apart from any other genre. But what it does do, it establishes rules that can be followed, or they can make a point of breaking them, and it just gives a nice little sandbox for horror to work in.
Yeah.
Which is something kind of unique to that genre.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I don't think fans will ever forget that this movie exists.
No, I have told a lot of people about this
Yeah.
one. I have, at my job, on the wall, I have a printout of like lots of different movies.
Yeah.
Like ones that I really like, that I like the posters of. I'll print them out in A4 and I'll put them on the wall. And this film is on there. And there have been a few people that have asked me about it.
Yeah. It's also like meta horror movies is now, in 2024, it's not really a new concept.
If anything, it's kind of overdone.
It is a little bit overdone, but again, Behind the Mask was 10 years after Scream. And I still think, even now, with all of the movies that we've had, like, of a similar ilk, I agree, I think it is, like, the only really worthy
competitor to
it. And even then, it's not really competitor because they're doing two different things.
Yeah.
It's like they're poking holes, I guess, within the genre, or like the, you know, films that are aware of like these tropes and these characters, that it all exists. But they are two very different movies at the same time. But yeah, it's kind of sad that like maybe the last decent one we had was 2006.
Yeah.
Because Cabin in the Woods, I know, is also sort of similar.
Very different approach.
I'm not the biggest fan of Cabin in the Woods. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
But I think Behind the Mask is a little bit more
Clever,
yeah, in the way that they went about it.
Do you have any more notes on this one?
I don't think I do. Other than, unfortunately, also the director didn't really seem to go off to do like too many other things. At least not that I could find. Anyway, the cast have done like some things, but as we say, like not necessarily worked, like carried on in acting. It's like it's a little film that ultimately had like a big idea,
Yeah.
big concept, and it pulled it off.
Yeah, just no one watched it.
Just unfortunately, not a damn soul saw it.
Well, I suppose if it only got a limited release, that's, you know, essentially they're cutting it off at the knees there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, thanks a lot, guys. Check this one out. It pops up on Shudder quite regularly. We rented it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Especially if you're into your Friday the 13th, your Halloweens, I think you will get a lot of kicks out of this film.
Definitely.
Let me know if you have watched it. I want to see if I can get a gauge of like how many of our audience even know that this film exists.
Yeah.
So, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.